Welcome to the Bewarecast, where I teach you about the things that you need to beware of. In the 1997 science fiction horror film Event Horizon, we are introduced to one of the most chilling and enigmatic antagonists in sci-fi cinema, an unseen, malevolent force that possesses the titular ship. While never given a formal name, this entity is often interpreted as a representation of pure evil from another dimension, a place of chaos, suffering and madness that defies human understanding. Today we're going to dive deep into what we know and what we can theorize about this terrifying presence. The story of the Event Horizon begins with human ingenuity and ambition. Built to test a prototype gravity drive capable of faster than light travel, the ship was meant to fold space-time and create a shortcut through space. But when it activated its gravity drive, the ship vanished, not into another part of our universe, but into another dimension entirely. This dimension, though never named in the film, is heavily implied to be a realm of unthinkable horror. Captain Miller and his crew refer to it as a kind of hell, and the visions and hallucinations they experience suggest that it feeds on their deepest fears, regrets, and guilt. When the Event Horizon reappeared years later, it was no longer just a ship. It had become a vessel for this malevolent force, bringing a piece of that dimension back with it. Unlike traditional monsters, the entity in Event Horizon doesn't take a clear physical form. Instead, the ship itself seems to have become alive, a haunted, sentient construct that manipulates reality within its walls. The gravity drive is often depicted as the heart of this malevolence, its spinning, ominous rings almost like the eye of something slumbering like a god. Doors slam shut on their own, walls bleed, and the very layout of the ship seems to change to trap its victims. Crew members experience vivid hallucinations tailored to their psyche, driving them to madness and violence. It's as if the ship reads the minds of those on board and turns their inner darkness against them. In this sense, the entity is not a creature in the traditional sense, but a corruptive force, one that infects both the physical and psychological reality around it. The abilities displayed by the Event Horizon entity are terrifyingly vast. It can manipulate physical space, sealing doors, controlling temperature, and even altering gravity. More dangerously, it attacks the mind. Crew members are haunted by lifelike hallucinations of lost loved ones, past traumas, and nightmarish visions that drive them to despair or insanity. It also seems capable of possession. Dr. Weir, the ship's creator, becomes its most notable victim, gradually losing his mind and eventually becoming a physical agent of the ship's will. His transformation into a mutilated, self-mutilating servant of the ship shows the ultimate fate awaiting those who fall fully under its influence. Perhaps most horrifyingly, the ship's logs reveal what happened to its original crew. They descended into sadistic madness, murdering and mutilating each other in a frenzy of violence. This suggests that the entity feeds on pain and chaos, spreading madness as a form of sustenance. Unlike many creatures in sci-fi and horror, the Event Horizon entity doesn't have a clear, exploitable weakness. Conventional weapons are useless. You can't shoot or stab a ship possessed by an interdimensional force. However, in the climax of the film, Captain Miller manages to destroy part of the ship, blowing up the gravity drive section and presumably severing the link between our world and the dimension of chaos. This suggests that while the entity is powerful, its connection to our reality depends on physical anchors, in this case, the gravity drive and the ship's structure. Destroying or isolating those anchors seems to disrupt its influence. Of course, even then, the ending leaves room for interpretation with lingering questions about whether the evil truly died with the ship. Just for fun, why don't we speculate a little on the dimension that the Event Horizon entity came from in the first place? While Event Horizon never shows us the dimension the ship travelled to, the fragments of evidence we do get suggest a place far beyond human comprehension. If we were to speculate based on the hallucinations, madness and violence experienced by those on board, we might begin to picture this realm as an antithesis to our ordered universe, a dimension where the laws of physics, morality and even reality itself are warped far beyond recognition. Perhaps this place is not a structured world at all, but an endless churning void, a sea of shifting chaos where time folds in on itself and space stretches and contracts at random. In such an environment, survival as we know it would be impossible. Matter might constantly reshape, and the minds of any who enter would be bombarded with sensory input that makes no logical sense. This could explain why those who come into contact with the Event Horizon quickly lose touch with reality. Their brains are simply incapable of processing the dimension's alien logic. Some theories suggest this realm resembles a kind of metaphysical engine, one that feeds off pain, fear and suffering. In this theory, the dimension is a predator of sorts, not a place, but an awareness or force that latches onto other universes through gateways like the Event Horizon's gravity drive. Once connected, it spreads like a virus, using hallucinations and emotional trauma to break down resistance and claim more victims. We might imagine landscapes in this realm as nightmarish, ever-changing labyrinths of bone, metal and flesh where gravity pulls in contradictory directions and screams echo without end. If the visions seen by the crew are literal glimpses, then the beings or forces that dwell there are sadistic beyond human understanding, delighting in inflicting agony and turning friends into enemies through sheer madness. Alternatively, for a more Lovecraftian perspective, this dimension could be the domain of ancient, godlike intelligences, beings so vast and alien that their mere presence shatters sanity. The Event Horizon, by breaching the fabric of our universe, may have drawn their attention, and in response, they imprinted a fragment of their essence onto the ship. In this version, the ship is less possessed and more contaminated, like an object exposed to lethal radiation from beyond space and time. Either way, this dimension seems to be a place where life is twisted into its most destructive form, where suffering is not a byproduct but the primary currency. A realm where thought becomes reality, but only in its worst guise. It is hell, not in the religious sense, but as a universal constant, the ultimate entropy that awaits all things when structure and sanity finally break down. When 12 monolithic vessels suddenly appear at various points around the globe, humanity is thrown into a tense and awe-struck scramble to communicate with the beings inside. These beings, the Heptopods, are not hostile nor overtly benevolent. They are something else entirely. Enigmatic, detached, unfathomably alien. This is a closer look at the Heptopods from Arrival 2016, what we know of their biology, their language, their perception of time, and what their appearance means for humanity. The Heptopods derive their name from their 7-limbed radial body structure. They are unlike any terrestrial organism. Standing at an imposing height of around 20 feet, they possess no obvious head, no facial features, no visible eyes, and no apparent front or back. This radial symmetry suggests a completely alien evolutionary path, one not driven by the same environmental pressures we are familiar with on Earth. Each limb ends in a fine, flexible appendage capable of articulating their complex, circular written language. These limbs move with a fluid, almost hypnotic grace, suggesting strength and precision, but never aggression. Their bodies are shrouded in mist within their ships, which may either conceal or preserve their form. It's unclear whether they are aquatic, amphibious, or something else entirely, but their constant immersion in a thick atmosphere may hint at a high-pressure homeworld or the need for a controlled environment. They never exit their chambers. This could be due to fragility in Earth's atmosphere, or it could be a form of separation, a deliberate boundary that allows contact without risking contamination or misinterpretation. What truly sets the heptapods apart is their method of communication. They possess a spoken language, referred to as Heptapod A, composed of deep resonant vocalizations and complex tonal structures. But it is Heptapod B, their written language, that defines them. Heptapod B is a logogram-based language written in perfect circles. Each circle contains a complete, intricate thought, a sentence, a paragraph, or even a philosophical idea. They write by releasing ink-like trails from their limbs into the mist, forming these circles instantaneously. The speed and complexity with which they do this implies a vastly superior cognitive capacity, or at least one that is structured entirely differently from our own. The circular nature of their writing is not just aesthetic, it reflects their perception of time. They do not experience time linearly. Past, present and future are simultaneous to them. As a result, they must know the end of a sentence before they begin to write it. This suggests a deterministic universe, one in which cause and effect are not sequential but coexistent. As humans begin to learn this language, their minds begin to shift. They start to perceive time as the heptapods do. Linguist Louise Banks, the protagonist of the film, begins having visions of future events, emotions she has not yet felt, and memories she has not yet made. It becomes clear. The heptapod's language doesn't just change communication, it changes thought, it changes reality. The heptapod's ships themselves are obelisks of mystery. Each vessel floats effortlessly just above the Earth's surface, never touching ground, never emitting sound or heat. Their shape is deceptively simple, a smooth, dark, featureless shell that appears inert and impenetrable. Inside, however, is something altogether quite different. Gravity shifts. The rules of physics bend. The interior space is disorientating, a vertical chamber that defies logic. The heptapods dwell behind a translucent barrier, always immersed in mist. Whether this mist is a life support system, a cultural boundary, or a means of obfuscation is never explained. The heptapods allow entry on their own terms. At predetermined intervals, they open portals and allow humans to ascend. There is no indication of engines, propulsion systems, or even construction seams on the vessels. It's as though the ships simply appeared, existing without origin. They are more like cosmic sculptures than machines, objects with purpose beyond human understanding. Their technology seems less like a tool and more like a natural extension of their philosophy, silent, efficient, profound, and wholly alien. So why did they come to Earth? Unlike many depictions of aliens in popular culture, the heptapods are not invaders. They don't wage war. They don't seek conquest. Instead, they come bearing a gift, their language. They claim humanity will help them in 3,000 years. And by teaching humans to perceive time as they do, they are planting the seeds for that future help to manifest. This suggests a species that is not only intelligent, but foresighted in a way we cannot fully comprehend. They act not from need or fear, but from certainty. To them, the future has already happened. Their gift is not altruism, it is necessity. And yet, it is not a manipulation. They allow humans to choose, to understand, to rise. Their purpose is both profoundly alien and deeply intimate, to expand human consciousness in preparation for something far greater than we can imagine. Despite their immense power and knowledge, the heptapods are not omnipotent. Their greatest strength, their perception of time, may also be their greatest vulnerability. They cannot act spontaneously. they must adhere to the flow of events as they already know them to be. This makes them passive in moments of crisis, unable to intervene when humans act out of fear or misunderstanding. They also depend on humans being willing to learn. Their method of communication is not immediate. It requires time, trust, and profound cognitive shifts. If humans reject their language, their entire mission fails. Their power does not come from force, but from influence. That influence can be ignored. Furthermore, their inability to exist outside their controlled environments may limit their reach. They remain isolated, hidden, distant. If conflict had broken out, they might not have responded, or perhaps they simply knew it wouldn't. The Heptopods are not just aliens. They are a metaphor for understanding, for unity, for breaking the barriers of perception. They challenge us to rethink our place in the universe, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, and temporarily. They represent a future where humanity does not dominate, but participates. Where we are not the center of the story, but one part of a vast and interconnected timeline. By the end of Arrival, we are left with a haunting truth. The Heptopods didn't just come to Earth, they came to change us. And through their language, they gave us the power to change ourselves. The question is, are we ready to listen? In the frozen isolation of Antarctica, humanity stumbled upon a terror beyond imagination. The Thing, the alien life form from John Carpenter's 1982 horror masterpiece, is not just a monster, it's a biological enigma. Today we'll examine the biology of this shape-shifting alien in depth. How does it function, survive, and adapt? Let's dive into the terrifying science of the ultimate parasitic organism. The Thing, also known as the organism, is an extraterrestrial life form capable of mimicking any organism it comes into contact with, down to the cellular level. This isn't just imitation, it's assimilation, a complete biological takeover. But what kind of creature could evolve such an ability, and how does it operate on such a horrifying level of perfection? Let's break down its biology and see what makes it the ultimate predator. The Thing's defining characteristic is its ability to replicate other organisms perfectly. But how does it achieve this? The key lies in its cells. These alien cells seem to operate as independent entities, capable of learning and adapting at an astonishing rate. Unlike Earth's organisms, the Thing's cells likely contain advanced genetic material capable of rapid reorganization. When it comes into contact with a host, its cells bind with the host's cells, analyzing their structure and copying their DNA. This allows it to create an identical clone, indistinguishable from the original, both in appearance and behavior. In essence, every cell of the Thing functions as a miniature organism, working together in perfect harmony to achieve assimilation. This cellular independence is what makes the Thing so resilient. It can survive as a whole or in fragments, with each fragment capable of regenerating into a fully functioning entity. Survival is the Thing's greatest strength. On Earth, it crash-landed in the Arctic millions of years ago, frozen until it was disturbed by the Norwegian research team. Despite being dormant for millennia, it reactivated instantly, suggesting a highly adaptable biology designed for extreme environments. The Thing's ability to endure freezing temperatures indicates it has a biochemical composition vastly different from Earth-based life. It may rely on antifreeze like proteins or a molecular structure resistant to ice crystallization, similar to certain extremophiles on Earth. Its resilience ensures it can lie in wait for new hosts, no matter how long that might take. Once active, it rapidly adapts to its surroundings. Its mimicry allows it to integrate into ecosystems without detection, posing a serious threat to any biosphere it invades. This adaptability makes it a perfect invader, quiet, undetectable, and devastatingly efficient. The Thing's true form is one of its biggest mysteries. Throughout the film, it takes on many grotesque and horrifying shapes, but these are likely just approximations of past hosts. This suggests that the thing has no original form. Its default state is likely amorphous, a mass of tissue capable of reshaping itself endlessly. Its transformations are more than just horrifying, they're purposeful. The thing uses its shape-shifting abilities for defense, creating weapon-like appendages, or for offense, producing sharp claws and tentacles to overpower hosts. This fluidity makes it a master of adaptation, capable of evolving new traits in real time. Behaviourally, the thing is strategic and intelligent. It operates with a hive mind-like consciousness, coordinating its efforts to assimilate while avoiding detection. It knows how to manipulate fear and paranoia, turning potential threats against each other. This psychological manipulation makes it as dangerous mentally as it is physically. How does the thing spread? It doesn't reproduce in the traditional sense. Instead, every encounter with a host is an opportunity to create more of itself. By assimilating another organism, it effectively duplicates itself, turning the host into a perfect replica of the thing. This parasitic method of propagation is both efficient and terrifying. Each host-turned-replica becomes another vector for infection, creating a chain reaction that can spread exponentially. On a global scale, this method would lead to the eventual extinction of all original lifeforms, replaced entirely by the thing. The origins of the thing are left ambiguous, but its biology offers some clues. One theory is that it evolved on a harsh, resource-scarce planet where mimicry and assimilation became necessary for survival. In such an environment, the ability to take on the traits of other organisms would be a crucial evolutionary advantage. Alternatively, the thing might be the product of bioengineering, a weapon designed to infiltrate and conquer alien worlds. Its capacity to absorb, adapt, and replicate would have been developed as a tool for colonization or warfare. If true, this represents the pinnacle of biological engineering, capable of outsmarting and outlasting any adversary. Its ability to infiltrate and replicate makes it an ideal tool for conquering or neutralizing other species. However, such a powerful organism might have escaped its creators, becoming a rogue entity drifting through space. This would explain its seeming lack of purpose beyond survival and assimilation. It could simply be fulfilling its original programming without oversight. Another theory is that the thing might be the result of an experiment gone wrong. On its home planet, scientists could have been attempting to create an adaptable organism for exploration, colonization, or medical purposes, but the experiment spiraled out of control. The thing's mimicry could have been intended for peaceful purposes like healing or environmental restoration before evolving into a dangerous and uncontrollable parasitic entity. One more theory is that the thing might not be from our universe at all. It could be an interdimensional organism, an eldritch entity that slipped into our reality. Its biological rules might not align with ours, explaining its seemingly supernatural abilities. In its home dimension, it might be a common life form with mimicry as a survival trait. However, in our reality, its biology appears horrifyingly alien, and it operates with rules that defy our understanding of life. One final theory, this one being my personal favourite, is that it could be that the thing is a part of a biological cleanup crew designed by an advanced civilization to recycle dead or obsolete ecosystems. Its mimicry and assimilation abilities would allow it to integrate into any biosphere, consuming and repurposing life forms. However, if unleashed on a thriving ecosystem like Earth, it would act more like an apocalyptic parasite, breaking down life indiscriminately. Whatever it is, the thing is more than a monster. It's a terrifying possibility. Its biology demonstrates the power of evolution, adaptability, and survival at all costs. It's a reminder of how fragile life can be when faced with an organism that operates beyond our understanding. Whether it's an ancient organism or an engineered weapon, the thing represents the ultimate biological nightmare. In 1962, audiences were introduced to a chilling vision of nature gone rogue in The Day of the Triffids, a British science fiction horror film based on John Wyndham's novel. The film presents a world in which mankind is struck blind by a meteor shower, while aggressive, mobile plants called Triffids rise to become the dominant force on Earth. While the film diverges in many ways from the novel, the Triffids themselves remain a fascinating creature to examine from a speculative biology perspective. In this video, we'll take a closer look at what the Triffids are, how they function, their evolutionary adaptations, and what possible scientific explanations might underlie their terrifying existence. Triffids are large, carnivorous plants, capable of uprooting themselves and walking using a tripod-like arrangement of root-like limbs. They stand approximately 7 to 10 feet tall and feature a thick, fibrous stem crowned with a large pulsating pod. This pod contains a whip-like stinger capable of striking prey and injecting a venom that causes paralysis or death. The stinger appears to operate via rapid muscular contractions, similar to how a jellyfish delivers venom through a harpoon-like nematocyst. Once the prey is immobilized, the Triffid lowers its central pod to begin feeding, likely by absorbing nutrients through root-like tendrils or dissolving tissue with enzymes. While they lack visible eyes or ears, Triffids appear to possess some form of environmental awareness. They can detect sound or vibrations and appear capable of tracking movement. It is unclear whether this sensory awareness comes from pressure-sensitive cells, primitive auditory organs, or chemical detection. More unnervingly, they seem to exhibit a form of rudimentary intelligence, or at least coordinated behavior. In several scenes, Triffids appear to hunt in groups, herd humans, or exploit environmental weaknesses. This raises questions about whether Triffids possess some kind of decentralized neural network akin to slime molds or fungi. The origin of the Triffids varies depending on the adaptation. In the novel, they were allegedly bioengineered and cultivated for oil, whereas in the film, the implication is that the meteor shower brought their spores to Earth from outer space. Assuming the latter, we might speculate that Triffids are a form of panspermia adapted life. Their spores could be designed to survive interstellar radiation and extreme cold, lying dormant until reaching a habitable world. Their aggressive mobility and predatory feeding style would then be part of a survival strategy on alien worlds, where traditional plant strategies would be inadequate. Alternatively, their physiology might point to a form of convergent evolution with terrestrial carnivorous plants taken to an extreme. Venus flytraps and pitcher plants already exhibit complex motion and digestion. The Triffids may simply be an evolutionary endpoint in such a trajectory. With humanity largely blinded by the meteor event, Triffids quickly rise to dominate. Their combination of mobility, venomous weaponry, and resilience makes them almost impossible to contain. As they spread across cities and countrysides, they outcompete native flora and fauna, and then begin hunting down the last remnants of human resistance. Triffids would destabilize food chains, clog transport routes, and overwhelm emergency services. Their ability to propagate through seed or spore means they would quickly colonize new regions. It kind of reminds me of my back garden. The collapse of human civilization in the film is not just due to the blindness epidemic, but because Triffids exploit the resulting vacuum with predatory efficiency. Triffids, despite their strengths, are not invincible. In the 1962 film adaptation, it is discovered that seawater causes them to wither and dissolve. This vulnerability to salinity could be due to a delicate balance of cellular osmosis, or it may hint at a biochemistry sensitive to ion concentrations. Other weaknesses might include fire, herbicides, or desiccation. Since they seem to rely on moisture and biological tissue to survive, they may be vulnerable to heat-based weapons or ultraviolet radiation. Containment would require coordination and environmental manipulation. Barriers like salt ditches, flame walls, or sound traps could herd or neutralize them. However, if they are capable of evolving resistance or adapting quickly, long-term survival against them would be uncertain. Let us now speculate on what kind of world the Triffids may have originated from. If they are indeed from another world, as some adaptations suggest, then their home planet must be radically different from Earth in ways that shaped their physiology, mobility, and methods of predation. Most striking is the fact that the Triffids are plant-based, yet mobile and carnivorous, suggesting a planet where evolutionary pressures forced flora to adopt animalistic traits. Perhaps this world experiences long periods of darkness or frequent eclipses, limiting photosynthesis and driving plants to develop alternative means of energy acquisition, namely consuming other organisms. This alien world might be densely vegetated, with tangled jungles and overgrown plains dominated by towering plant forms that move and compete like animals. With sunlight often obscured, competition for nutrients could be fierce, encouraging predatory adaptations in the flora. The ability to walk, or at least lurch awkwardly from place to place like a Triffid, would allow a plant to chase prey or relocate to better feeding grounds. Such mobility might also be crucial to avoid being overrun by larger or more aggressive flora, turning the ecosystem into a hostile, shifting battlefield where only the most adaptable survive. The Triffids' whip-like stingers and venom could hint at a world teeming with small, fast and aggressive fauna, perhaps insect-like creatures or reptilian herbivores. In such an environment, developing a fast-acting neurotoxin and a powerful, extensible appendage would offer a distinct advantage, both for defense and for hunting. This would also suggest a world where evolution heavily favored those that could incapacitate and digest prey quickly before larger scavengers arrived to steal a kill. Atmospherically, the planet might be thick with humidity or enveloped in chemical mists that favor plant life but challenge site-based predators. This could explain why Triffids are blind and rely on auditory and tactile cues to locate prey, possibly hinting at a world where eyes are unreliable and other senses dominate. They may have evolved to hear vibrations through the ground, or sense movement via specialized surface receptors, allowing them to react with surprising precision in low visibility environments. Alternatively, their homeworld might have long since died, a desiccated planet choked in ash or scorched by solar flares, leaving the Triffids as one of its final, durable legacies. In this interpretation, they are not just survivors, but relics of a once lush biosphere, unleashed on Earth as a final warning of what happens when nature's balance is broken by the most adaptive forms of life. The Triffids stand as one of science fiction's most memorable plant-based threats, tapping into deep-seated fears of nature turning against us. Their terrifying blend of alien biology, silent menace, and sheer resilience make them ideal candidates for speculative analysis. Whether seen as a warning about environmental tampering or a symbol of the fragility of civilization, the Triffids endure as a classic monster. Imagine a world where the faintest sound could mean your demise. In the A Quiet Place series of films, the world has been overrun by terrifying creatures known as the Death Angels. But what exactly are these monsters? Where do they come from? And how do they function in an ecosystem that has been thrown into chaos? Today, we'll break down the biology of the Death Angels, examining their anatomy, physiology, adaptations, and possible origins. Are they an example of extreme evolution, or something entirely alien? Let's find out. At first glance, the Death Angels resemble a grotesque fusion of insectoid and reptilian traits. Standing at around 8 feet tall, they have a gaunt, sinewy frame covered in a black, chitinous exoskeleton. This exoskeleton likely serves multiple purposes. Their bodies are seemingly impervious to small arms fire, indicating an incredibly dense outer shell, possibly akin to the carapace of deep-sea arthropods. Despite their bulk, they are extremely fast and agile, suggesting their muscle structure is designed for rapid bursts of movement rather than brute strength. Their tendons and muscle fibers may function similarly to those of big cats or even large insects, allowing them to move with lethal efficiency. Their elongated limbs resemble those of predatory theropod dinosaurs like velociraptors. These limbs, combined with long, powerful claws, enable them to tear through obstacles with ease and traverse rough terrain at incredible speeds. Their true horror, however, lies in their heads. Instead of eyes, they have a massive, armoured cranial plate that can split open to reveal ultra-sensitive inner ear structures. This anatomical feature is key to their way of perceiving the world. The Death Angels rely entirely on sound to hunt. Their skulls are essentially giant resonance chambers, housing a complex auditory system far beyond anything seen in terrestrial creatures. Like bats and dolphins, the Death Angels likely use echolocation, emitting ultrasonic pulses that bounce off objects to create a three-dimensional map of their surroundings. This allows them to track prey with pinpoint accuracy, even in complete darkness. Their exposed ear structures might act like parabolic reflectors, concentrating sound waves into their inner ear. This would allow them to detect even the softest noise, from a rustling leaf to a human whisper. Given their ability to ignore irrelevant background noise, they must possess an advanced neural filtering system that isolates specific frequencies, particularly those associated with organic movement. This adaptation explains why they are drawn to the smallest sound, but also struggle with extreme bursts of high-frequency noise, such as feedback from a hearing aid. Their overdeveloped auditory system, while a strength, is also their greatest weakness. One of the most mysterious aspects of the Death Angels is their feeding behaviour. Unlike conventional predators, they do not seem to consume their kills, instead indiscriminately slaughtering anything that makes any noise. If they do eat, they may rely on an internal digestive process unseen by human eyes, perhaps absorbing nutrients in a way akin to some deep-sea creatures. Their relentless activity and aggression suggest an incredibly high metabolism. They must either consume a vast amount of energy, or have a completely alien biological process that fuels their relentless hunting. If they originated from a low-light environment, such as deep underground, or a planet with a very dim sun, they might have evolved to derive energy from sources other than conventional food, like chemical or radiation absorption. The Death Angels are extraterrestrial in origin, undoubtedly. This accounts for their physiology being so radically different from anything on Earth. But what kind of environment could have shaped such a creature? One possibility is that they evolved in a high-pressure, low-light environment, as previously mentioned, perhaps a planet covered in perpetual darkness. In such a place, reliance on sound rather than sight would be a dominant trait, making echolocation the primary means of detecting prey. If their exoskeletons are impervious to bullets, they may have evolved under extreme atmospheric conditions, possibly with higher gravity and immense atmospheric pressure. This would explain their incredible strength, speed, and durability. An alternative theory is that they are not naturally evolved at all, but rather the result of extraterrestrial bioengineering. Perhaps they were created as living weapons by an advanced alien race and then accidentally, or intentionally, unleashed upon the Earth. Despite their terrifying attributes, the Death Angels do have exploitable weaknesses. High-frequency noise disrupts their hunting abilities, effectively disabling them. This is seen in A Quiet Place, when Reagan's hearing aid emits feedback that causes them to become disorientated. Their inner structures also appear quite vulnerable. When their head plates open, their internal ear structures and brain become exposed. This provides a brief window where they can be killed, as demonstrated in the films. In A Quiet Place Part 2, it is revealed that the Death Angels cannot swim. This suggests they either evolved in a land-locked environment, or their dense exoskeleton makes them too heavy to stay afloat. While highly efficient hunters, they do not appear to exhibit problem-solving intelligence or strategy. They rely purely on instinct and reaction, making them susceptible to traps and countermeasures. If humanity were to truly face creatures like the Death Angels, survival would depend wholly on our own adaptation. Some potential strategies include living in soundproof environments. Underground bunkers or insulated homes, for example, would provide some protection. Ultrasonic weaponry is another. Devices that emit high-frequency noise could act as repellent defences. Think of those cat repellent devices that some people have in their gardens in their homes to prevent cats from soiling their grass. If you're under the age of 25, apparently you are able to hear it, but people over the age of 25 generally cannot hear them, as the frequency is too high for our old ears. Flooding cities may be another possibility, extreme as it is, but extreme circumstances call for extreme measures. Using water barriers to create safe zones, as the creatures are unable to swim, may suffice, temporarily staving them off. We would need to make absolutely sure that the Death Angels had no method of getting across the water toward the land, however, as we saw in A Quiet Place Part 2. We could also implement decoy tactics, setting up noise traps to lure them into kill zones, allowing for controlled elimination. These are just some methods, however. I'm sure you probably have some additional ideas too. Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. The Death Angels are among the most terrifying creatures in modern horror cinema, not because of their grotesque appearance, but because of how realistically they exploit a single human vulnerability, our need to make sound. Their biology, adaptations, and weaknesses paint a picture of an incredibly well-evolved predator, one that thrives in darkness and silence. But, as deadly as they are, their Achilles heel reminds us that even the most fearsome creatures can be outwitted. And, in a battle of survival, intelligence and adaptation always win in the end. An amorphous, gelatinous entity from the far reaches of space, the Blob is a creature like no other. Originating in the 1958 classic The Blob, this ancient lifeform defies our understanding of biology, consuming everything in its path. But what if the Blob were real? What kind of organism could function like this? Today, we'll explore the biology, adaptations, and evolutionary origins of this mysterious creature. The Blob is a pulsating mass of protoplasmic material with no discernible organs, skeletal structure, or nervous system. Its physiology seems simple, yet it operates with terrifying efficiency. But what exactly is it? To start, we can categorize the Blob as an amorphous organism, a single, undifferentiated mass of living tissue. It lacks the compartmentalization seen in Earth-based life, such as cells or tissues. Instead, it appears to be made up of a vast network of semi-liquid cytoplasm, similar to Earth's slime molds or amoebas, but on an astronomical scale. Its gelatinous consistency allows it to ooze through tight spaces, engulf prey, and even withstand physical attacks. But this raises an important question. How does the Blob grow so rapidly? The blob's most terrifying feature is its ability to consume and grow at an exponential rate. Its method of feeding resembles phagocytosis, the process used by amoebas to engulf food particles. When the blob envelops a victim, it secretes a powerful enzyme that breaks down biological material into simpler molecules, which it then absorbs. The rapid digestion is likely facilitated by a highly efficient biochemical system. The enzymes must be universal, capable of breaking down diverse organic matter from human flesh to plant material. The absorbed nutrients are distributed instantly through the blob's fluid-like body, fueling its relentless growth. But how does it move? Without muscles or a skeleton, the blob likely uses a process called cytoplasmic streaming. This involves shifting its internal fluids to create pseudopods, or temporary extensions, that allow it to ooze forward. Such movement is incredibly energy efficient, making it ideal for a predator with no fixed form. Despite lacking eyes, ears, or even a brain, the blob is remarkably adept at locating prey. But how? One possibility is that the blob uses chemoreception, the ability to detect chemical signals in the environment. It could smell its prey by sensing the carbon dioxide exhaled by living organisms or the amino acids present in biological tissues. Another theory is that the blob can detect vibrations, much like certain Earth-based creatures. Snakes are the most obvious example of this type of Earth creature. Specialized receptors embedded in its gelatinous mass might sense sound waves or physical movements, guiding it toward potential victims. This decentralized sensory system might be connected to a network of chemical signals that allow the blob to coordinate its movements and feeding behaviors. Think of it as a primitive, distributed nervous system. The blob's ability to grow without apparent limits begs the question, how does it reproduce? The most likely answer is a form of asexual reproduction. If the blob is damaged, smaller fragments of its body might break off and grow into independent organisms. This method, known as fragmentation, is common in simple life forms like starfish and some fungi. Alternatively, the blob might use binary fission, a process where it splits into two equal halves, each developing into a full-sized organism. This would make the blob nearly impossible to eradicate, as every attempt to destroy it could result in more blobs. Or instead, perhaps, it may utilize a method of reproduction called budding. Instead of fragmenting or splitting entirely, the blob might reproduce through a process similar to budding seen in organisms like yeast or hydra. A smaller blob could grow from the main body, feeding on surplus nutrients, until it detaches and becomes independent. This form of reproduction would allow the blob to create smaller, mobile offspring while conserving energy for its own growth. Sporulation is another possibility. The blob might produce microscopic spores capable of surviving extreme conditions, again similar to fungi or certain bacteria. These spores could lie dormant until they encounter favourable conditions, at which point they could germinate and grow into full-sized blobs. This method would make the blob incredibly resilient, allowing it to spread across vast distances, potentially even between planets. The blob did initially arrive on Earth via asteroid and crashed into the United States in the Pennsylvania area. This would mean that sporulation is a distinct possibility as to its reproductive method. The blob might undergo a unique form of mitosis, where, as it divides, it retains collective memory or sensory data from the parent organism. This could result in multiple blobs that share knowledge about their environment, prey, or potential threats, acting almost like a hive mind. Now let's consider the blob's evolutionary origins. This creature evolved on an alien planet, so what conditions might have shaped its biology? One theory is that the blob originated on a planet rich in organic matter, but with only a very few large predators. In such an environment, an amorphous organism would have significant advantages, such as adaptability and rapid growth. Alternatively, the blob could be a weapon, an artificially engineered bioweapon designed to consume and destroy organic life. This would explain its hyper-aggressive feeding and apparent immunity to environmental extremes. A third possibility is that the blob is a cosmic hitchhiker spreading through the galaxy by hitching rides on meteors. This would align with its appearance in the film, arriving on Earth via a glowing meteorite. Now, could the blob actually exist in the real world? While the blob may seem like pure science fiction, similar organisms exist in nature. Slime molds, for example, as previously mentioned, are capable of complex behaviours like problem solving and movement without a brain. Extremophiles, such as those living in hydrothermal vents, thrive in conditions once thought uninhabitable. If life can survive in such extremes, who's to say an organism like the blob couldn't evolve somewhere in the universe? Its biology might be improbable, but it's not impossible. The blob remains one of science fiction's most iconic and terrifying creatures, a true enigma from beyond the stars. Whether as an evolutionary marvel or a cosmic menace, its biology continues to captivate our imaginations. What do you think? Could the blob exist? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you for checking out my video on the possible origins, biology, adaptability and physiology of the blob. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. It would be much appreciated. And also, if you want to become a patron of mine, you can do so by visiting the link in the description. Thanks for watching again. This has been the Bewarecast, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. Towering, cloaked in advanced technology, and driven by an insatiable hunger for the hunt, the Predator, known to its own kind as a Yautja, is one of science fiction's most iconic alien species. Since their debut in the 1987 film Predator, these mysterious extraterrestrials have captured the imagination of fans with their brutal efficiency, sophisticated weaponry, and complex sense of honor. But what are they really? What do we know, or think we know, about their biology, their society, and the terrifying rituals that drive them to hunt other life forms across the galaxy? Let's find out. The Yautja are humanoid, standing around 7 to 8 feet tall with powerful muscular builds that suggest immense physical strength. Their skin is thick, leathery, and often mottled in patterns, likely serving as camouflage. Underneath their signature masks lie fearsome mandibles and reptilian features, traits that hint at a potential evolutionary lineage from a predatory or apex species on their home world. Despite their bulk, the Yautja are incredibly agile and capable of bursts of speed, acrobatic maneuvers, and enduring combat with physically powerful opponents. Their vision spectrum differs from that of humans, as evidenced by their infrared-based eyesight, although they can switch between multiple vision modes. They appear to have enhanced durability and a faster healing rate than humans, supported by their use of medical technology that accelerates tissue regeneration. Their blood is phosphorescent green, potentially indicative of unique biochemistry, and perhaps tied to atmospheric or dietary differences on their home planet. The Yautja are not just biologically formidable, they are technologically advanced. Their arsenal includes, among other things, shoulder-mounted plasma casters, wrist-mounted blades, collapsible spears, smart discs, and cloaking devices that render them nearly invisible. Their helmets not only assist in vision enhancement, but also provide breathing filtration, suggesting that Earth's atmosphere may not be ideal for prolonged exposure. These weapons are not only tools of death, but symbols of status, often decorated or customized by individual hunters. Yautja technology is built for durability and elegance, designed to support their lone wolf or small squad hunting style. They also possess spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. The Yautja possess one of the most fascinating and richly developed alien cultures in science fiction. Beneath their terrifying exterior lies a deeply complex, ritualistic and honor-bound society that revolves around one central concept: the hunt. Far from being mindless killers, the Yautja live by an intricate code of conduct, guided by tradition, hierarchy, and a spiritual reverence for the act of hunting worthy prey. At the core of Yautja culture is the Hunt Code, a guiding principle that governs their every action. To the Yautja, hunting is not merely a sport or survival tactic. It is a sacred rite of passage, a spiritual endeavor that defines one's place within their society. Only prey deemed dangerous, intelligent, or capable of resistance is considered worthy of the hunt. As such, they typically target armed humans, xenomorphs, and other formidable creatures. Harming the defenseless, such as the unarmed, sick, pregnant, or children, is considered dishonorable, and violating this tenet can lead to social exile or even death. Despite their fierce appearance, the Yautja are not universally hostile. There are stories of them sparing or even allying with humans who have demonstrated courage, intelligence, or respect for their customs. In rare cases, they may even offer humans weapons or recognition, marking them as honorary hunters. However, betrayal or dishonor is never tolerated, and such alliances are fragile at best. Their long-standing rivalry with the xenomorphs is well documented in various accounts, and is believed to be both practical and ceremonial. Xenomorphs represent the ultimate prey, fast, deadly, and unpredictable. Many hunting expeditions revolve entirely around tracking, capturing, or eliminating these creatures. Though not definitively confirmed in most films, the Yautja homeworld is depicted in expanded lore as a hot, harsh environment with a high gravity and frequent storms. This might explain their resilience, strength, and capacity for endurance in a wide range of conditions. The intensity of their environment likely shaped their physiology to favor thermal regulation, aggressive behavior, and survivalist instincts, perfect conditions for developing a predatory culture over the millennia. Their home planet, often referred to in non-canon sources as Yautja Prime, is thought to be covered in dense jungles and rocky terrain, teeming with native fauna that may rival even the xenomorph in danger. Constant exposure to predators and environmental hazards likely encouraged technological innovation and a communal emphasis on strength, strategy, and the importance of the hunt as a spiritual and cultural cornerstone. Yautja are capable of mimicking human speech via their technology, but they possess a language of their own composed of clicks, growls, and roars, often exchanged during combat or ritual. Their written language appears as symbols or glyphs used to record information, transmit data, or inscribe messages on weapons and armor. In some stories, they also use this language for warning or boasting, marking the locations of successful hunts with their sigils. Despite their might, Yautja are not invincible. Their reliance on technology can be a vulnerability. Take away their weapons and cloaking abilities, and they are still formidable, but more manageable. They also operate within a rigid honor code, which can be exploited. For example, refusing to fight or laying down weapons may result in them choosing not to engage. Thermal vision can be disrupted by cooling the body or masking heat signatures, as seen in the original Predator film. And while their armor is tough, it's not impenetrable. High-caliber weapons and explosions can harm or even kill them. Ultimately, the Yautja are conquerable, but only to those cunning and brave enough to match their ferocity. The Yautja remains one of sci-fi horror's most enigmatic and enthralling alien creatures. More than just a monster, the Yautja is a glimpse into an alien civilization built on principles we can partially recognize. honour, glory, and the thrill of the hunt. Whether feared, admired, or respected, the Predator is the embodiment of what happens when evolution and ritual collide across the stars. And if they're out there, watching us now, let's hope we're not seen as worthy prey. At the heart of H.G. Wells' classic The War of the Worlds lies one of the most chilling alien invasions in science fiction history. The Martians aren't just terrifying invaders, but are also a fascinating biological puzzle. Today, we'll break down their biology, adaptations, and how they might function in reality. From their physiology to their weaknesses, let's uncover what makes these extraterrestrial beings so intriguing. In the novel, the Martians are described as head-like beings with massive dome-shaped brains and no bodies as we understand them. Instead, they have two large dark eyes, a single tentacle-like appendage, and a beak-like mouth. This minimalist anatomy suggests they've evolved for efficiency in a way that prioritizes mental capabilities over physical complexity. Without a digestive system like ours, they directly consume the blood of their victims, absorbing nutrients in a highly efficient manner. This may suggest that their biological systems have evolved to bypass energy-draining processes like digestion, instead operating on a more parasitic model. Their highly developed brains imply an advanced nervous system, allowing for precise control of their appendages and machinery. Why do the Martians lack traditional limbs or organs? Wells's Martians seem to represent a hypothetical evolutionary endpoint where intelligence becomes the sole driver of survival. Over countless generations, they may have shed unnecessary body parts to conserve energy, leaving only the components required for thought, manipulation, and feeding. This design hints at a planet where the environment is either so hostile or so resource scarce that energy efficiency became paramount. The Martians' physiology suggests a society dependent on technology. Why evolve robust physical bodies when machines can do the heavy lifting? Their design highlights a fascinating interplay between biology and technological reliance. Alongside the Martians comes the mysterious red weed, a plant-like organism that spreads rapidly across Earth. The red weed seems to be a form of extraterrestrial vegetation adapted to Mars's ecosystem. Its explosive growth hints at aggressive genetic engineering or symbiotic relationships with Martian technology, designed to quickly convert Earth into a hospitable environment for its creators. However, its inability to thrive in Earth's wetter, oxygen-rich climate speaks to its alien origins. Like the Martians themselves, the red weed struggles to adapt to an environment vastly different from Mars, underscoring how dependent they are on their home conditions. The Martians don't rely on their bodies alone. Their tripods, heat rays, and other advanced technologies are extensions of their physiology. The tripods, in particular, are described as being almost alive, suggesting a fusion of biology and engineering, a form of biomechanical symbiosis. This raises the question: have the Martians transcended traditional evolution by merging with their technology? Their reliance on these machines could point to a civilization that has externalized many of its physical needs, focusing entirely on intellectual development and technological dominance. However, this reliance also leaves them vulnerable. Take away the machines, and their minimalist bodies are ill-equipped to survive. Wells describes Mars as a dying world, with harsh conditions forcing its inhabitants to adapt in extreme ways. The Martians likely evolved from more complex organisms, shedding unnecessary traits like limbs and digestive organs as they became more reliant on their intellect and technology. Over time, their evolution may have prioritized efficiency, leading to the streamlined parasitic beings in the novel. Their reliance on blood as a nutrient source suggests they once had a predator-prey dynamic on Mars. However, the depletion of resources on their home planet might have forced them to turn to technology and interplanetary conquest for survival. Their symbiosis with machines, such as their tripod vehicles, indicates a culture where biological evolution and technological progress became inseparable. It's also worth speculating on whether the Martians were the only intelligent species on their planet, or if they outcompeted others in their evolutionary arms race. Did they develop their parasitic behaviour by preying on other sentient beings on Mars, similar to how some parasitic insects manipulate their hosts? Martian technology is terrifyingly advanced, blending biology and engineering seamlessly. Their iconic tripods are marvels of mobility and adaptability, suggesting the use of lightweight yet durable materials, perhaps derived from Martian resources. These machines are equipped with heat rays, an energy weapon capable of incinerating anything in its path. The black smoke they deploy as a weapon indicates chemical warfare on a level Earth had never seen at that time. This weapon could be the result of sophisticated biochemistry designed to suffocate and incapacitate foes while leaving the environment intact for their colonization efforts. The Martians, despite their technological prowess, are poorly adapted to Earth's conditions. Their physiology is accustomed to Mars's lower gravity and thinner atmosphere, meaning Earth's gravity places a tremendous strain on their bodies. This is why they rely heavily on their machines for locomotion and survival. Their inability to digest Earth's food sources underscores their dependence on parasitic feeding. This reliance makes them extremely vulnerable to disruptions in their food supply. Furthermore, the Martians lack immunity to Earth's microbes, an oversight that ultimately leads to their demise. If Martians were to invade today, how might humanity respond? Modern science offers potential countermeasures. Biological warfare is one option. Understanding their vulnerabilities to Earth's microbes, targeted pathogens could potentially act as weapons against them. Environmental manipulation is another. Alerting the Martian invaded zones to create conditions hostile to the red weed, such as flooding or extreme temperature shifts, could slow their speed. Electromagnetic countermeasures is a further method of deterring the Martians. Given the biomechanical nature of their tripods, disrupting their systems with EMPs might neutralize their technological advance. While Wells wrote the Martians as a symbol of unstoppable power, modern science reminds us that adaptability and knowledge are humanity's greatest strengths. H.G. Wells's Martians continue to fascinate us because they embody both the fear of the unknown and the awe of what lies beyond our planet. Their advanced intellect, horrifying physiology, and ultimate vulnerability make them one of the most compelling alien species in fiction. The War of the Worlds challenges us to consider our place in the universe and reminds us that survival isn't just about strength, it's about adaptability, cooperation, and respect for the natural world. And if the Martians ever return, let's hope we've learned enough from their first invasion to hold our ground.